Eve has always been that girl, but who is she for real? Let's find out. One of the most complex questions I have ever had to ask myself is, who am I? Because with every experience and as each year goes by, my answer to that question evolves. And as I was reading Eve's new book, Who's That Girl, I realized that I'm not the only one. We know her as the award-winning rapper who took over the music scene before also becoming an actress, entrepreneur, and talk show host. But who is Eve beyond those titles and accomplishments?
How you doing? You look so cute! Who's that girl? La, 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 la. Hey, la, 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 la. You look so good. Yeah. Awesome. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're set up and ready to go.
Gorgeous.
Yes. Super cute.
Great
right?
space.
Yeah. Are all three cameras rolling? Good? All right. 3, 2. Eva! EVE, I am so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you.
You know what's funny? Like, for the past week that I've been reading the book, I got to know your voice in a way that I don't think I knew before.
No, 100%. And that was also important to me. That was hugely important to me. And one of my friends said to me when I told them I was writing a book, she was like, I hope you're you that I know, not interview you. And I was like, okay, I needed it to be me. So that is a huge compliment.
Well, before we got started, we were just talking about, just transparency.
Yeah.
The level of transparency.
Girl, I'm naked.
No, literally.
Naked.
There were moments where I was like, should I know that? I don't know. I don't know if I should know that.
I know.
But was there anything while you were writing it that you were like, I don't know if I want this to be in there?
There are tons of things in there. There are lots of things in there. Definitely, the sex tape stuff, that's not stuff people really, the behind the scenes of that stuff. I think some of the barbershop stuff with Nick, the things I thought about, with Nicki Minaj and barbershop. What else? I mean, there's tons of stuff. Even just my fertility stuff, like going deeper into that, going deeper into how I felt about, alcohol and what the role it played in my life. Lots of things I definitely was like, do I really, 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 really want to put this in here? But I also felt like it was important to put in.
Yeah, because it's your story.
It's my story.
But you got some stories.
Yeah, girl.
No, you haven't lived a life. I'm literally reading this. I'm like, this is so eventful. Like, my life is not this exciting. So, okay, let's go back to the beginning.
Yes.
You talked about your childhood, and you talked about, I think there was a line where you said that your childhood home felt dark.
Yeah. It's funny. That's just, I don't know. Like when I would go to other friends' homes, I just didn't feel that same level of darkness. In the sense of like, there was just a lot, I think, going on in my home as well. But yeah, other people's houses always felt a bit lighter to me, a bit happier. And I think that's what it was. So I say darkness, but I think there was some happiness possibly that was missing from my childhood home.
Yeah. I feel like I know what you mean because when you go outside, we were talking about outside.
When you go outside,
you start to see that there's other ways to live.
Totally.
And there's other ways to exist.
Yes.
And when that's different than what you're experiencing, then you start to go, wait a minute.
Yeah, you start comparing, you start thinking about things like, oh, we don't do this. We don't act like this.
I think you'd be surprised at how many people are going to relate to that part, that specific piece of it, and are scared to say something out loud because they feel like, you're being ungrateful or you're like saying something against your family or something like that. But like, if that's your truth, that's your truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've said this before. We didn't say I love you or I hate you. There was no real communication in that way. There was like screaming maybe or whatever. When someone was upset, you knew somebody was upset. But yeah, we just weren't that kind of family.
Yeah. How would you say that affected kind of how you moved in the world as an adult?
It took a long time for me to really understand how to actually communicate my real feelings. The only time I never had a problem with that was in my business. But when it came to me personally, when it came to my personal relationships, I always had an issue with communicating what I feel, how I felt, and conflict. I hated conflict because I really just didn't know how to deal with it. It made me so uncomfortable. But in business, I was always ready for a conversation, a conflict, and I was always ready to stand up for myself, which is weird. Yeah. I could totally do that in business, but I could not really do that in my personal life.
Well, it's the vulnerability piece of it that's like, I feel like if you don't learn vulnerability, you got to learn it kind of the hard way.
You do.
You either got to lose someone or something has to happen. And then you're like, oh, it's honestly, okay, this conversation getting really deep.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's about feeling safe.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you,
100%.
Yeah. And if you don't feel safe, then you're not going to be vulnerable.
100%. Vulnerability is the scariest place to be. Vulnerability is, for me, the friend I avoided for years. Like literally, because I just didn't want to feel my feelings, like ever. Yeah. But I also didn't know how to. I didn't grow up learning about feeling my feelings. So yeah.
But you've gotten to a place now, I can tell by reading this book, where you are some level of comfortable with being vulnerable. I mean, you really poured yourself, your whole self
into this book.
And, you know, it's out there in the world.
Yeah.
So how did you go from being, I guess I would say, fearful of being vulnerable to just being like,
this is what it is.
It is.
I mean, definitely having my son cracked me open for sure, in a whole different way. And I was just ready. And I think, you know, I've said this, but this book for me is shedding some things that I just don't feel like I need to carry into the life I want for my kid. You know, it's important for me that I raise him without my baggage. Yeah. Yeah.
That's like the best gift you can give your child is dealing with your baggage.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about your childhood and then you get your Rough Riders audition.
Yes.
And then after the audition, they're like, welcome to the Rough Riders. And then you immediately, boom, feel imposter syndrome instead of excitement.
Exactly.
Which, that's a very real thing.
It's a real thing.
When I read that, I was like, that's me with every opportunity.
You know what it is? I think, not to cut you off, but what I think that is because it doesn't matter what industry you're in. We all have had that. I think sometimes we're so focused on getting the thing that once you get it, you're like, oh, I got it. Now what am I supposed to do with this thing? It's just a scary thing. Like, oh my God, this happened. Now what do I do? Now I got to show up. Yeah. Now I got to show up. Like, I know I can kill it. Because you know you can.
You know what I'm
saying? You know you can, but you still are like, wow, no, now I really have to do the work and I have to prove myself.
Yeah.
That's scary.
I think I don't know, for me, when I find myself doing that, it actually makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Because then it makes me wonder, when I was going after the thing, did I not believe that it was going to happen?
Right.
Because for me, it's actual shock as well. It's like, wait, really?
I know, but I think that says something about you. I think that's a level of humility as well. I do think that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think humans are weird. We're so weird. We torture ourselves. We do. I feel like at least for me, no one drives me crazy like I drive me crazy. Yeah. There's no one that can do what I do to myself, sadly. But I think most humans are like that. I don't know why we torture ourselves. Yeah.
Something that really stuck out to me as well was when you spoke about you get into the business and you're thinking that there's going to be all this female empowerment and all of the girls are going to stick together. Yeah. There was a line you said that made me cackle. I was on the plane too. I cackled out loud. You said something like, I don't want to misquote it, but you said something like, I mean, I didn't think we were going to party like it's 1999 because it was 1999.
Because it was. Like, yes, come on. It was.
I died.
No, it was. Yeah. Stuff like that is so funny. Stuff like that in the book was fun to write. But it was true. I had this whole thing in my head that you just hang out. Everybody's your homie. Like, girl, hey girl. I was such a nerd. I was running up
brunch?
to everybody. Like, yeah, brunch. Yeah, and it just wasn't like that. It was not like that. Yeah.
Would you say that made your shell even harder?
Definitely. I think I've always been the kind of person that is like, I'm glass half full always. Mm-hmm. I've always been like that. But I quickly realized like, oh shit. I was like, okay, this is not what I thought. So I did have to start becoming what the industry was, and yeah, I did have to start putting up a wall, putting on a shell more and more to kind of be like, oh, this is what you do, I guess.
Do you think it's changing, or do you think it's the same as it was in 1999?
Girl,
no, you think it's worse?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Because I'm not in it. I'm not as close in it. I would say in the business part of it, like I used to be. I'm not in those rooms or those buildings. What I do like to see is that I do think you see a lot more of the female MCs, the girls hanging out more than I think we did, some of us. I think you see that a lot more now. Mm-hmm. Lots of collaborations that I think happen a lot more now than ever happened before. So maybe it is changing. I hope it is changing, definitely.
Yeah. You talked about some heavy stuff as well. Your miscarriage.
Yeah.
Opening up about that, I remember you said something like you didn't even want to talk to yourself about it at the time.
Definitely.
As a fellow Scorpio, I understand.
Girl.
I understand. I overstand.
Okay? Yes.
Like, just not wanting to even have the conversation with you. You can't even have the conversation with somebody else if you're not willing to have it with yourself.
So true.
When did you get to the point where you were like, okay, I just need to deal with this and have that conversation with myself?
Yeah, I don't think I really dealt with it until I was really ready to really get pregnant with my son now. So it was years and years. I kind of, when it did happen, we told a lie about it because I was filming. And then I just moved on and went on with the other things I had to do. I never grieved it. I definitely was a compartmentalizer. I thought I was. It was like, I'm gonna deal with this over here and put this over here. I'll deal with this now, but I'm gonna put that to the back. You can only do that so much before it comes crashing down. Like you can only sweep so much under the rug until it becomes a fucking mountain. You know what I'm saying? And I think I did a lot of sweeping. I tried to sweep a lot because of avoidance. Yeah. Definitely.
Where does your self-awareness come from? You are so self-aware. Like even a common thread I also realized through the book is that you would explain the experiences, but then you would always explain what you got out of it and how you moved from one chapter to the next to the pun intended.
Yeah.
from one chapter to the next to the next to the. Honestly, you didn't go through any of these chapters without explaining like the reflection of it and like who you became because of this experience.
Oh yeah, that was important for me. That was intentional.
Okay.
Because I wanted this book to be purely about me. Even if there are named people in this book, it's not about them. It's about the situation and what I learned from it and what I got from it. That was very intentional. And like I said, again, a lot of this stuff came to fruition on the page of like, oh man, I would have that revelation in the writing session of like, man, I never thought about it like that or like that. Yeah. But the other thing with this book was that I didn't want a book that was scandalous in any way, clickbaity in any way. And people are going to take what they want from certain things or whatever. But at the same time, this was my book. This is my book about healing, about shedding and moving forward.
I think this book is very appropriately named.
Thank you.
Obviously the song, but I think it's appropriately named because I felt like I was watching you. Well, we'll get into that too, because I do think this needs to be a movie, but that's another conversation. But I felt like I was reading you become.
Yeah, totally.
And I was reading you figure out the answers to this question.
Yes, I love that. And it's the truth.
Right.
100%. I love that. Yeah, no. And that's definitely, yes, the truth.
So how would you say you figured out who that girl is?
Yeah, I mean, I think I figured that out before the book, which also made me ready to write the book. Because even though, as I said, lots of things came to fruition and I figured certain things out, I already was in a space in my life where I'm like, this is what it is. This is who I am, authentically, unapologetically, this is who I am. So I think that also made me comfortable diving in to writing this book and letting people know who I am at this point in my life. Yeah. Yeah.
So as you reflect and think about your future, which is completely so bright, so bright. What is your vision for yourself?
Oh my goodness. There's so many things. I think I want to, well, I'm already thinking about the next book. Yes. But I definitely want to get, entertainment will be my life. Music, I don't know, but I definitely want to get back into TV and film, but from the other side of the camera.
Producing?
Yeah,
okay.
Producing, creating. Yeah, definitely. Personally, just taking my baby to nursery and just being there for him, having fun with him, hanging out, figuring out what my family wants. And spending that time, because I think that's just that kind of stuff is so important. And also something I missed out on in the very early parts of my career. I missed out on a lot of things. So yeah.
What do you want people to know about Eve?
That's a good question. What do I want people to know about me? Is that I'm coming from an authentic place. I think for a long time, I don't think I allowed myself to kind of live from my heart. And that's where I feel like I'm at now. I'm just living more from my heart space than my head space. And that's a big deal. That's even me saying that out loud is for me to also continue to do, because I live in my head. So that's my goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a whole word. No, honestly, because it's hard.
Especially
so hard. Like we were talking about in this business.
It's so hard.
You almost feel like you're living from your headspace to protect your heart.
100%.
I just want to acknowledge you for your vulnerability, your transparency, your honesty, and your boldness for being able to pour this much of yourself, this much of your story, and this much of your life. Yeah. I think that this could be someone's survival guide.
Oh my God, thank you
in their life.
Wow, thank you.
Because I felt like I was reading like a self-help book, plus there was moments it felt like comedy, there were moments it felt like it was just like a lot of things, but that's life, right?
Yeah,
like life is complex.
Yes.
And so it just felt like it was reflecting life in the most authentic way.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for that. That's a huge, huge, huge compliment.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, girl. Thank you for having me, girl.
What I love about this conversation is that Eve's willingness to be opened me up to answer a lot of my own questions. Every experience that she writes about in her book led her to becoming who she is. And I mean, who doesn't want to live their soft girl era? So like Eve, understand that all things are leading you to answer the question, who am I? And your vision is depending on it. Viv.